Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of the Parade People podcast. I'm Alex, also known as Macy's Parade Fan 2024. I am accompanied by the owner of the Macy's Parade Wiki, Jamarcus Mudkip.
Yeah, that's me. I do parade stuff and all that fun stuff, and yeah, that's me.
I'm also accompanied by Apple, who's the owner of Macy's Parade History and also helps out on the Macy's Parade Wiki.
Hello, I'm proud to be here.
All right, so
And we are here today to talk about the 93rd annual Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade that was held on November 28th, 2019.
yeah, it was the 93rd edition, and of course, everyone knows the parade started back in 1924 as a way to celebrate Macy's becoming the world's largest store, taking up a whole city block. So it was actually an advertising manager that came up with the idea, and some of the Macy's employees who were first generation European immigrants. They helped stage it because it was like the sort of street festivals that they had back in their homeland to celebrate, good fortune and celebration and all that stuff. And then a few years later, the famous balloons were introduced, of course. It was actually originally known as the Macy's Christmas Parade, but that was changed in 1934 to the Macy's Santa Claus Parade. And then the year after that, it was changed to what we know today as the Thanksgiving Day Parade. And the rest is history.
Now, guys, we are going to get into the Broadway section, which is always the first hour of the parade each year, which is held for all the Broadway musicals. Let's get into that, and let's first start off with the opening number of the Macy's parade that year, which was the cast of "Ain't Too Proud: The Life and Times of the Temptations."
I will say that it was a fantastic way to kick off the show. Motown is very popular, even still today, and this performance specifically really helped me get into Motown. Listen to Temptations, Darling Love, all that fun stuff, Stevie Wonder. So this performance is very special to me for that reason, and yeah.
Yeah, it's right. Like, I love old classic music, like the Temptations. I love all of that. And opening it with Ain't Too Proud was a great choice.
I feel like the opening with "Ain't Too Proud" was a great way to kick off the parade. Like Jay said, it brought the electricity to the parade that year. It brought that good feel to let you know that the parade's coming and it's going to be a good one.
And this is also a notable performance because towards the end, of course, like the start of every broadcast, the two hosts, Savannah Guthrie and Hoda Kotb, they came out, and of course the news stories leading up to that day. It was a very windy parade. We should preface, or however you say it. But it was a very windy forecast. They weren't entirely sure if the balloons were going to fly, and so just before they went uptown to do the ribbon cutting, they announced that the balloons would fly, and everyone went nuts.
Yeah, I felt like it was a great parade just because of that game time decision of if the balloons were going to fly or not. And thankfully they were able to fly, but they were flying at a very low level that year because any sustained gust over 35 miles an hour, the balloons have to be grounded. And I think they were at a sustained, what was it, Jay?
It was an average of 33.
33, so they were flying at a very low 10, 15, some were flying at 20 to 25 feet.
And of course, because of the winds, they did sustain more damage than they normally would, which we can get into that later. But that, of course, didn't affect the parade whatsoever, at least quality-wise.
And now we're going to get to our next Broadway act, which was Alex Brightman and the cast of Beetlejuice the Musical, which sang Deo and the Whole Being Dead thing.
Once again, this performance is very notable to me because I knew about Broadway before this parade, obviously. Like, I was aware of it, but it was Beetlejuice's performance this year that really was my gateway drug, so to speak, to musical theater. So in the past few years, I've gone to local shows a lot more, and I've started listening to more soundtracks, following Broadway news more closely. And as for the performance itself, it was really cool in that they changed the lyrics of the whole being dead thing to fit the parade, because it's actually something they did quite often. Like they did it at, when they performed on the Today Show, when they performed on Tony Awards. If they had a special performance, they would alter the lyrics of the Whole Being Dead thing to fit wherever they were performing. And I always love when shows do that. It's makes it them stand out from every other show that performs, I think.
I also like how they changed the lyrics to fit the parade. Like, Beetlejuice is a good movie, and the performance was phenomenal.
I think it was a great performance from the musical. You know, the movie Beetlejuice just came out on Thursday, so that was a great thing for Beetlejuice. But I love how they changed the lyrics to fit the parade for that year. I feel like it was a great touch.
And another thing about this performance, it was one of the musicals that they do often that they interacted with the crowd. Well, obviously, like not directly with the crowd, but an actor from the show was in the crowd, pretended to be a spectator, and there's a joke about queso, and they ended up passing the queso around the crowd. It was pretty great.
And now we're going to move on to the third Broadway musical of the hour, which was Hadestown, where they sang "Living It Up on Top."
Yeah, so Hadestown is based on the Greek mythology of Orpheus and Eurydice, and it combines obviously the Greek mythology of the tale and the like New Orleans jazz, which I'm personally a big fan of. And here they performed "Living It Up on Top," which was very fitting for the holiday because it's all about giving thanks for what they have in the overworld.
Same response as Jay, pretty much.
You know, I loved the song that they sang. Just giving thanks for what they have, and it was a great touch to the parade to have Hadestown there. It was definitely a special performance. And now we're going to move on to the fourth and final Broadway musical of the first hour, which was Tina the Tina Turner musical singing Proud Mary and Simply the Best.
Now, once again, I think this year was a really solid year for the musicals and just for performances in general. Uh, Once again, this was a great performance. Of course, Proud Mary is a song that everyone knows. It's high energy. Same with Simply the Best. And speaking of, at the start of Simply the Best, it was another one of those parts of the musicals where they started in the crowd and she then came out from the grandstands and onto the street decal and started the performance.
As a fan of Tina Turner, I really love the musical. Very outstanding one.
You know, I think the musical was a great one to end off the Broadway lineup for the parade that year. Definitely a great touch. Once again, you know, like Jay said, it was one of probably the best musical lineups we had for the parade, and it was a great way to end off that first hour of the parade.
And I should note, I think the quality of the musicals that year was just seen all across Broadway because, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was one of like the highest grossing years on Broadway in history. So that's pretty interesting.
And now we're going to dive into the highlights of the parade. Jay, I'll let you start us off.
So, obviously, after the Broadway musicals comes the Rockettes, and you can't go wrong with the Rockettes. You know, they've been performing for decades and decades and decades at the parade, and of course, they're synonymous with the holiday season in New York, and even synonymous with the parade. They're one of the only things that really appears every single year, besides like Santa and the cheerleaders and whatnot.
I think, you know, having the Rockettes a part of the parade every year, obviously last year being the first time that they've actually closed out the parade in a very long time. I think having the Rockettes being a part of the parade with those high kicks every year is one of the best ways to welcome the parade to 34th Street after their 2.5-mile trek from Central Park West and 77th Street.
And then right after the Rockettes came the second opening performance, I guess, which featured the cast of Sesame Street, and they told a story about them starting from Sesame Street and then traveling through Times Square down to 34th Street, where they eventually performed, camped down, and welcomed the parade into 34th Street.
And they had a bunch of celebrities join them.
And they did. They had
that
Jane
opening number.
Krakowski, Darren Criss.
Lester Holt, Al Roker, really good celebrity presence for that opening, and obviously having Snuffleupagus join the cast on 34th Street was also a great sign for Sesame Street. And I remember that morning seeing, the Sesame Street float off to the side at 34th Street. I was like,
Yeah, because it was assembled at the staging area, obviously at the starting line bus. Because it was opening the show and they had to rehearse on 34th Street, they disembarked along the parade route around 6:30, I think.
In my opinion, the parade isn't the same without Sesame Street. They've been appearing for decades, and I don't know, it feels like it's one of those performances that you can never forget.
We're jumping ahead quite a bit here, but I want to get this out of the way just because I think it's one that we can all agree was a top-notch performance. But it was Jimmy Fallon and the Roots performing Surfing Bird on the Entenmann's Float.
Jimmy Fallon it was a very goofy and upbeat performance. Yeah, it was a great one.
in my opinion, watching a performance like that where the float's holding on for dear life, and it's one of those great performances where it's high energy, high packed. I could tell Jimmy Fallon had a lot of fun with the cast of The Roots there as well.
I guess next we could talk about the balloons, just go over the balloons that appeared this year. So in 2019, there were 3 new giant balloons. There was Astronaut Snoopy, SpongeBob and Gary, and of course Green Eggs and Ham. There's also a new heritage balloon of Smokey Bear, which celebrated his 75th anniversary.
And will be coming back to the parade this year to celebrate his 80th anniversary.
That's right. There was also the unfortunately ill-fated Love Flies Up to the Sky balloon by Yayoi Kusama, which was punctured by the winds overnight, and it was just damaged and couldn't fly, unfortunately.
We also had another balloon that did fly but did not make it to 34th Street, which was the Ronald McDonald balloon that got its foot cut open just before or after denetting. We are not sure on when it happened, but the gash just kept getting bigger and bigger as the balloon made its way down to 34th Street, and what was pulled on 42nd Street.
That's right, yeah. It was still safe to fly, but I guess some of the higher-ups, either in the parade or at McDonald's, just decided that they didn't want him appearing on public television in the state he was in. And speaking of removed balloons, there was obviously the Love Flies Up to the Sky. There was Ronald. There was also a blue and white Macy star, which unfortunately hit a generator just before kickoff. And obviously, since it was just before kickoff, they couldn't repair it and fill it with helium in time, so it had to sit out. There was also a gold star flake, which allegedly flew across the street overnight because of the wind, and a shooting star. It didn't survive, unfortunately, and didn't appear in the parade.
I'd say another highlight from this year's parade was the performance of the song that was just made for the parade from 12-year-old rapper That Girl Lele, which appeared on the Universal Playground float.
Yes, Macy's Day Parade. She even included it on one of her albums. It was one of the sort of songs written specifically for the parade that actually got a release at all, because most of the time it's written for the parade and it's never really released to the public outside of the telecast.
One of my favorite performances was Kerry Rowland. I really love that song.
I agree. It was one of the songs that I was really hooked on after the parade throughout the 2019 holiday season, and I still listen to it every year, and I don't know why I love it, but it's just a great song. Kelly, you can't go wrong with Kelly Rowland, really.
He's an icon. And speaking of icons, let's talk about Debbie Gibson singing her 1980s hit Electric Youth on the Shimmer and Shine float.
Yeah, this was the second time she appeared. Last time she appeared, there was another Windy Parade back in 1997. On the M&M's float, I think she appeared that year on.
Having icons in the parade like Chicago, Debbie Gibson, Sierra, like all these iconic performers that came to the parade in 2019. I think it was definitely one of the greatest guest performance lineups in parade history.
And while we're on the topic of performances, I think it's illegal to mention the parade without mentioning the 610 Stompers from New Orleans.
absolutely love watching those fat men with those short shorts.
They're very short, and that's some people might find it
You could
weird, but I like it.
uh you they're very tight too. Very
Oh yeah,
tight.
or
You
not
could,
tight enough.
well, we'll let the people paint the picture there.
Ooh, getting all hot and bothered. Let's move on. Ooh.
Whew. Uh, let's move on to the the performance groups that perform every year for the past, I think it's 20 years,
They started
20,
in
30 years in the parade.
they started in
Is
1986, so we're coming up on 40 years actually.
We're coming up on 40 years here with the Spirit of America Dance Stars and Cheer, both including over 600 performers.
And the dedication that the dancers and the cheerleaders have is phenomenal because they don't meet until I think it's like the Saturday before the parade or the Sunday. And so they only have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday to rehearse. And they rehearse a lot. I think it's something like several hours a
4 to 5
day.
hours a day.
Yeah, it's nuts. I'm sure by the end of
And
it they never want to
honestly,
hear the music
before that,
again.
they perform by themselves at their houses or at their dance studios, because there's a lot of dance studios that get their dancers to sign up to be a part of Spirit of America.
And even the performances, the music is it's only sent to them at the end of October, so they have only about a month to perfect this dance that is going to be seen in front of only 3.5 million people along the route, 50 million at home. That's all.
I think last year we had our biggest viewership on NBC for the parade, correct?
That's right. There was 28.5 million people watching, probably more because there's more than one person watching at each household, obviously, but
It was definitely a great year indeed.
uh,
Last year in 2019 being one of the last years that the parade would be kicking off at 9 o'clock.
yeah, because by 2020, so it was only like two more times after this that it actually started at 9. Because in 2022, they moved ahead 15 minutes. And then again last year, they moved ahead another 15 minutes, so now it starts at 8:30.
And it's always, waking up as a kid on Thanksgiving morning, or unless you're myself and never sleep Thanksgiving, um, it's always great time. I always get anxious before the parade starts. I feel like time's moving like 3 times slower before the parade starts, and then the parade just goes by in a blur after that.
Yeah, it's pretty much how I feel too.
But yeah,
But Apple, is there any performances that you want to bring up that we haven't talked about yet?
got the marching bands.
Yes, the marching bands. They kicked it off strong with the Morgan State University marching band, the Magnificent Marching Machine, and it was one of the cases of a show band kicking off the parade, which is, I think, the only way to kick off a parade. They performed Everyone Dance Medley, and it was a showstopper. Even though the show was just starting, it was a real showstopper, I think.
And then also we had the Martin Luther King High School Kings of Halftime band perform, and they really showed why they are the kings of halftime with their performance.
What else was there? There was obviously the Great American Marching Band. They appear every year. Uh, Kids from 50 states come together, just like the Spirit of America teams, and they meet the first time only about a few days before the parade, and they rehearse for hours and hours and hours.
So if we were to rate this parade on a scale of 1 to 10, what would your guys' ratings be?
That's I think I would give us like a 9.9. Like I don't want to give it a 10 because I feel like there gotta be like some parade that's gonna come along that's just gonna like cradle me in its arms. It's gonna kiss me. It's gonna stroke my face. It's gonna treat me well. And the 2019 parade definitely did that. But until there's something that really just blows this one out of the water, I'm gonna give it a 9.9.
I'll give it an 8 because it's not as good. not as good as 2021 or 2018, in my opinion. But yeah, it was a solid parade after all. If you don't count the removals and stuff like that, it was a solid parade.
I'm going to give this parade a 9.7 out of 10 because nothing will be able to top the 2018 parade for me, because you guys know that was a huge like milestone and a huge like gift for me as a child. I felt like going to the parade, sitting in the grandstands, I felt like nothing could top that experience. So that's why I'm giving this parade a 9.7 out of 10, because nothing will be able to top when I went to the 2018 parade.
Before we go, I think we should cover the floats briefly since we talked about everything else.
Yes.
So the floats for this year, there were 5 new ones and 1 refurbish. The refurbishment was Snoopy's Doghouse. It went from the Christmas theme to the normal doghouse with a satellite on top for the astronaut Snoopy balloon, of course.
And then we had the Tom Turkey float, which was the second year in a row that it appeared in its new look after not being hauled by a Ram truck, but being built around one of the Ram trucks.
And it was the second year, but it was the first year that the new, not sure what you call it, like the pattern around the base, it was changed this year because when it debuted, it sort of had a autumn leaf motif, I guess. And then this year they changed it to like a gold gradient with sparkles throughout, which I think fit it better, and I think it looks better too.
Indeed. Well, I think one of my favorite floats from 2019 was the Kalahari Resort float.
Yes, this was its second year in the parade, just like Tom Turkey, but it's very creatively designed. You know, you got the elephant that makes up the trees, and the trunks come down to make the tree trunks. You got the puppeteers, animators up inside the head controlling the birds and the elephants, and of course it had TLC on it, which they can never disappoint.
Never disappoints. Another great icon performance group. Apple, what was one of your favorite floats from 2019?
There's many. Like there was, of course, the Kalahari float, which had TLC on it. There's I don't really know what to decide. There's New York Life. There's Kalahari. There's I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah, 2019 had a lot of great balloons, floats, toy floats, balloonicals. It was a great lineup.
One more thing I do want to bring up, which is probably one of my favorite floats to ever appear in the parade, the brick changer, because I love Lego. I love
Absolutely.
The parade. You put them together, you get this. It's an amazing float too.
They literally built that float brick by brick.
They did, and building, and they look exactly like Lego bricks too, which is incredible.
Which blows my mind. Like the people at the Macy's Parade Studio in Moonachie, New Jersey, do a really great job designing these floats, balloons, toy floats, and everything else with the parade. So I definitely give my hats off to the people at the Macy's Parade Studio.
And something to note about this float, I believe the designer actually used a digital Lego building program to design the float. I believe. I could be mistaken.
I did hear something about that.
But yeah, I guess that's the 2019 parade.
I think that about does it. We thank you guys for joining the first episode of the Macy's Parade podcast. We hope to see you guys next week for an episode with a special guest, and we're excited to talk everything Macy's Parade wise with you guys.
All right, yeah, thanks for joining us. Very excited to start this. Hopefully it's a weekly thing if all goes well. Of course, like Alex mentioned, there's going to be interviews, there's going to be parade reviews, there's going to be probably parade news updates, all that fun stuff.
And yeah, like we said, thank you guys for joining the first episode, and we hope to see you back for the next episode when we do our first parade interview.
All right, bye-bye.
Good night.
All right. Bye, everyone.